Today I was speaking about how HR can really become a trusted advisor in our organisations, how we can really make a difference. Not so much around having talent strategies and succession planning and areas which are important, but in themselves not sufficient to our success. So I was looking at what are the key drivers of success. And my focus was really on how we can truly understand the business and speak the language of the business. And also to build strong relationships with the key stakeholders that we work with. Because in the end, it comes down to trust. So we can do everything else right and not have the trust, and we won't become the truly trusted advisor that we want to be. So it's a huge topic. We had a short time to talk about it, and we shared some experiences in Q&A afterwards. So it was a good discussion. I think HR can influence the C-suite by really understanding what's important to them. I wonder whether we really understand what are the business issues that keeps the C-suite awake at night. What's really important? And if we can understand that and we can start with that in terms of identifying how we can make a difference, then I think we immediately get influence, because we tend to trust people who want to help us, who support us and share our objectives. So I think we need to ensure that we start with their agenda, not with our agenda. But very often in HR, we do it the other way around. We'll talk about our strategy, what we're doing. And actually, I think that's the wrong start point. In my presentation today, I used a quote by a guy called Dale Carnegie, who many years ago wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he said you can win more friends in 2 months by being interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get them interested in you. I think sometimes in HR we forget that. If we actually follow that advice, I think it gives us a huge opportunity to truly be influential. I think we need to recognise that the CEO isn't the only stakeholder to influence. So if we're struggling sometimes to actually get to that individual and get on their agenda and get the role that we want, I think we should look more broadly at the stakeholders that we work with. So for example, the executive team, the other colleagues who we work with. Because actually, if we can gain credibility with them and they have credibility with the CEO, then that brings our reputation to that individual in a different way. You know, we can carry on in a certain way for so long, but if we're struggling, we need to take a different approach. It was Einstein who said, if you keep doing things the same way, you keep getting the same result. Obviously, that applies in this situation. We can keep on trying to influence our CEO, but we know that some are more enlightened than others. And so if they're not enlightened, who else can we influence? Who else can we work with? Who else has a voice with that individual who can give us recognition in other situations? So I think it's keep on doing the right thing and doing it across a range of stakeholders, not just with the CEO. Obviously, ultimately, we want the CEO to have that recognition of the role and importance of HR. And in many cases, we get there. In some cases, we don't, and maybe we never will. But if we keep on focusing on doing the right thing, I think we can still make a huge difference in our organisations. My team have regularly influenced the business strategies in the organisations that I've worked in. Maybe I can't be so specific about some of the examples because they obviously have an element of commercial sensitivity about them. But whenever we have discussions around the business in terms of the structure of the business, in terms of changes within the business, in terms of mergers and acquisitions, HR needs to have a real voice. And we have had a real voice in terms of shaping the direction. And I think there's some real expertise that we can bring as HR professionals to our organisations. We can bring expertise around culture. We can bring expertise around change. And I think we need to be truly champions of those areas. So if we are actually focusing on change and recognising that actually it needs to be a constant in our organisations and bringing the expertise on how to do it and how to do it really well, then we continue to have that voice. And that's been my focus and the focus of my team. So we can help shape the strategy of an organisation, and we should do that. But also, we've regularly had a voice and continue to have a voice in terms of, okay, how do we make it work? Because, of course, we have a unique expertise in HR, and we can help shape the strategy by using that. I think the other area that's interesting is to look outside the company, look at the external world, look what's going on in the future of work. It's a massive subject. You think about things like artificial intelligence, automation, an ageing workforce, Brexit. mental and financial wellness. There's a whole range of areas which are relevant to our organisations. And we can help shape the organisational agenda and the direction by bringing that thinking in. You know, I think we need to challenge ourselves and say, if we're not looking outside the organisation and bringing that thinking in, who's going to do it? Very often, probably nobody. So we have a unique opportunity, I think, to influence in that way. I think HR will continue to be under pressure around cost. And actually we need to continue to be lean in what we do and recognise that we need to find ways of building an HR function which is really focusing on the added value strategic areas. So I think we'll continue to see outsourcing of HR processes. We'll continue to see, I guess, lower cost alternatives to some of the more basic administrative areas that we focused on in the past. And maybe what many people see HR to be today. And we need to raise our game, raise the level at which we operate, because the future is about that strategic engagement, I think. It's really about the areas where we can add value and make a difference, because that's the return on investment, if you like, of HR. You know, why invest in HR? Many companies don't have HR people, certainly not senior HR people. So we have to demonstrate what is the return on the investment. And I think having that focus maybe helps us shape what the future structure, the future focus of HR should be. I hope that from my talk today, everybody in the room would have taken away a challenge. One of my slides was to say, we need to look in the mirror. And I think it's always a helpful thing to do, to say, okay, I've had all this input, I've heard all these views, I agree with some, I may not agree with others, and that's fine. But is there any learning there? Is it just one or two little nuggets I should take away and reflect on and do differently? Because in the end, these conferences are great. They're fantastic ways to network, to learn, to see what's going on in the wider world. But if we just do that and then we do nothing else, I think we're doing ourselves and our organisations a disservice. So I think what I hope is that people have taken away maybe a few thoughts to say, okay, I'll try that. I'll do those things differently. And if they do that and it makes a difference, then it's been worthwhile.